Rob Powell. He's a teacher, traveler, and professional photographer, currently living in Bogota, Colombia. He's teaching English. He works on community art projects in Bogota.
That sounds about right. Nicely done. How are we all?
I'm good, and we wanted to welcome you to this interview and really thank you for taking time out of your day so you can spend it with us. So without anything else to say, let's get started, right?
Excellent. Let's go.
Okay, first, I'm gonna tell you a mini quiz that it's in the chat, so get answer.
In the chat. Bear with me. How do I enter my chat on here?
Yes.
There we go. I'm not so sure on Zoom. Okay, so I have to follow this link.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put my quiz on my other screen, okay? So I can still see you all. Okay. Now you're going to get me in trouble answering questions like this. So, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go through the quiz?
Yes, please.
So, am I answering the quiz online or are you asking me the questions?
No, first you asked online.
Okay. Let's try this. Okay, so what screen can you see? Enter your quiz name. Let me share my screen again. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my quiz name is Rob.
Okay, now.
I have a countdown. Even more nervous. Is it true that Comenius founded education? Excellent. Okay, this is a guess. Don't tell anybody. Too early. Uh-oh. I won't be top of your leaderboard. What's this? Power up. Let's have some ultra fast gameplay. Oh? Can I reattempt? What's this? Okay.
Okay.
I've completed the quiz.
Yes.
Okay, don't tell your teacher that I got one wrong.
Okay, so now we're gonna do some questions.
Yeah.
Before we start the questions, we want to know what a game changer is for you.
What's a game changer for me? I guess a game changer is something that somebody or something does that has an impact on me or something I'm associated with or can recognize, that really changes the way that we approach something, changes the way we do something in our lives or in our given situation. But to an extent that there's a dramatic effect. So it's not something that changes something quite a little bit subtly. It's something that has a major effect on the way that we do something or we live or we approach something.
Okay, understand. So now are there really questions?
Okay, let's see what you've got.
Who's next, Crystal?
Please, Juan.
Okay, well, I am Juan. I'll tell you my question.
Nice.
Now, let's ask some questions about your work, among others.
Okay, ready.
How do you divide time, between photography and being teacher?
So traditionally, when I moved to Colombia, I divided my time more by using my photography in the UK, and that would help support my lifestyle here in Colombia. So I would teach very little initially. So really, my photography was something that I would earn money with in England. And my teaching was something that would just support my lifestyle and keep me a little bit busier than having nothing to do. And my photography in Colombia has generally been voluntary work because I didn't really speak much Spanish up until a couple of years ago, and therefore didn't have the confidence to work as a photographer and earn money doing so. So in terms of divide my time now, in Colombia, where I live, I'm predominantly working as a teacher in English, and any work I do with the community and the art projects that I'm involved in is generally done at the weekends. So therefore I give my time at the weekend.
Okay. What do you like or enjoy most about being a teacher?
I like a couple of things, to be honest. I guess the first thing is the reward of seeing students progress and have success and achieve their goals with language learning. That's really important to me, to be able to see the progress people make. And secondly, I really enjoy learning from my students. So everybody that I teach has a different background, a different culture, a different way of life. And therefore, they give me something. They give me comprehension and understanding of different worlds and different environments and different cultures. And I find that really useful in improving the way I see the world and the way I interact with different people.
Okay, what has been the biggest challenge of living in Colombia?
It's simple, Spanish, learning Spanish. When I first arrived in Colombia, I didn't speak any Spanish at all, just hello, my name is, where is. And I found it a real challenge to be able to communicate, and more importantly, to have the confidence to talk to people. I was always really shy about making mistakes and getting things wrong. And I very quickly learned that actually I just need to try, and then people kind of help me out as I go along. So making my mistakes has enabled me to advance myself quite a lot and quite quickly. But that took a long time for me to understand.
So now we're gonna move on into the more interesting questions, let's call them. And first up, we got, what was your biggest challenge during the pandemic? Because we know that the pandemic was difficult for everyone. And we wanted to know, what was yours?
Okay, that's quite a tough question to answer, because I was stuck on my own, away from my family in Colombia, with no visible time of knowing when I would be able to see them. And that was quite difficult. Not for not seeing my family, because that's normal for me. I've always traveled and been away from my home, so to speak. But the anxiety of not knowing when I would be able to travel and see them, that was the hardest thing for me, because in part, my views on the pandemic were also a little bit different. So I wasn't concerned in any way, shape or form about the virus. I was just concerned about the impact it would have on my family, my friends, and on my lifestyle, I guess. But the hardest thing was without doubt being trapped away from my family and my friends, but mainly my family in the UK.
Okay. What was the most difficult thing about being a teacher in the pandemic? Because we know the part of the student, but not about the teacher.
Again, okay, good question. Adapting to working online. I'd never done it before. So my students were always face to face, and I really enjoyed the interaction of meeting face to face. And unfortunately, we lost that, and we had to reshape how we would teach and how, importantly, we could stay engaged with our students during that time, because it's so easy to disappear.
Honestly, that was pretty hard for me too, the fact that I wasn't seeing my friends. So yeah, I agree with you. And we also wanted to know what was the best trip that you've ever had?
That's a really tough question, because I've had so many. So I'm going to give you perhaps the best journey that I've ever had, rather than the best trip. And I think the best journey I ever had was last week, because I returned from England to Colombia, and I returned via Venezuela. So I flew into Caracas in Venezuela, and then flew to a place called Maracaibo on the Caribbean coast, and crossed a land border in Venezuela to Colombia, which is a notoriously difficult route. But I wanted to see a little bit of the journey that the Venezuelan people who have left have had to make. And therefore, it was incredibly rewarding to be able to understand a little bit better some of the difficulties that these people face making that trip. So in terms of my personal experience, for sure, that was the best journey I've ever had. And the best trip, I could list too many, but my first trip when I traveled to Malaysia when I was 20 years of age will always live with me because of the excitement that I felt at that time. So maybe that one, purely for nostalgia.
Okay, interesting. What has been the biggest challenge of your career as teacher?
Working with Jenny, perhaps. The biggest challenge as a teacher, I guess for sure, go back to the pandemic and adapting and working through it. It was really, really difficult because everybody was so confused, so lost, so overwhelmed, so desperate, that maintaining people's focus and positivity during that time was a real challenge. And also the cost. I know how much it costs to learn English privately. And when people have lost their work and they've lost their ability to be able to pay comfortably for their classes, it brought another challenge for me personally in terms of making sure that I remained accessible for people during that time.
Okay. For finally, what will be your advice for people who want to do several things at once?
Oh, my advice would be do it. My advice would be don't be overwhelmed by your own anxiety, that you will find a way of managing yourself and managing the people around you to enable yourself to do so. But the most difficult thing with it is trying, is having the strength of character to go and do it, as opposed to thinking about it. So my piece of advice would be jump in, do it, learn from anything that comes in front of you that might be difficult or challenging. You're learning, you're going to take a lot from that. So my advice, don't be frightened. People generally are very open and welcoming of people who try. And it's the best piece of advice I could ever give is try and go for it.
So sadly, this interview is pretty much about to end. We really thank you for taking this moment with us. But one last question we all have is, what did you like the most about the interview?
You all speak really clearly. So to be honest, I'm really impressed by the level that you all have at this moment in time. You're all going to be able to speak and achieve quite a lot with your English. And for me, English language is so important in the world today, and it is going to be more important going forwards. So to be able to share a little bit with people who are trying and wanting and progressing with English, it's a real pleasure for me. So the thing that I've liked the best is being able to see how young people in Ecuador today can communicate really well in English, and know that that's going to benefit you guys a lot in the future. Any more questions?
No, that's all. We are happy to have with you this interview, and we are done. We're happy, and thanks for everything.
No problem at all. If anybody ever has any